a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the first Dr. Kevin show of May. It's May! Yay! For those of us who live in the Northern Hemisphere, it is a happy time. It is a beautiful day, and spring is clearly here. I even risked putting away my snow shovels, which means, you know what? We're going to get a late May snowstorm. I know, and it'll all be my fault. But besides that, welcome here to the Dr. Kevin Show. So, first of all, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, on the first Thursday of every month, we have Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed, who joins us, and we kick around what's going on in the world. You can hear Matt on a daily basis at 95.3 MNF, WMNF Manchester, or you can go to mattconnerton.com or ipmnation.com from 4 to 6 for his drive time show. You can listen, watch, interact, dance the Watusi, whatever makes you happy. Matt's a pretty mellow guy. He loves call-ins, and we love call-ins here too. So if you'd like to be part of tonight's conversation, you can do so by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So, Matt, how are you? Matt, are you there? Matt? Oh, he just dropped. Oh, he'll call right back. So, well, there's been a lot going on in the world, guys. So I know that Matt will be back in a moment because the kind of guy Matt is. But until then, we'll kind of like talking what's going on in the world. So definitely, he's back. Matt, I did this great, fabulous, wonderful introduction of you, and you dropped me. God.
Yeah,
I'm back in high school.
I'm actually calling you from the studio line at WMNH because my cell phone keeps dropping the call, and it appears Verizon, so I'm on Verizon, and they've had some issues lately, an occasional outage here and there seems to be another outage.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you just can't win for losing, can you?
Yeah, well, Russian hackers, yeah. But at least I'm somewhere where there's another phone to use, so that's good.
We'll take it. So,
yes.
There is a lot going on in the world, and I'm sure that you've had some interesting conversations. And so I'm going to just toss it right over to you to start the conversations of what's been the hot topic recently at Matt Connarton Unleashed.
This week it's been all about the leaked draft of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which now seems to be inevitable. That's been the big subject.
So
that's been pretty dominant this week. Something actually displaced the war in Ukraine.
Oh, I'm sure it will find its way back in. So there's a lot of different things over there. One of the reasons I like to have you on the show, Matt, is you are both a political independent, savvy guy, and you're a political historian. So what do you think really happened? Who do you think most likely leaked it? And how do you think this is going to play out?
Well, as far as the leak itself, I mean, I have no idea. Nothing like this, as far as I'm aware, nothing like this has happened before in the history of the Supreme Court. As far as who leaked it, everyone is kind of assuming that it was someone, possibly one of the liberal justices leaked it, possibly maybe a clerk, someone who works at the court. They've got pretty tight security on these things, but, someone who wanted to act as a whistleblower. But it's also possible that it wasn't that at all. It might be might have been someone who's actually in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade, who leaked it as a way of sort of locking Justice Alito in to this position to try to make sure, almost as an insurance policy, to make sure that the conservatives on the court do in fact follow through on this. I mean, I don't think that's the most likely reason for this happening. I think it's probably, I don't know. I mean, it really is a mystery. But it's quite stunning. We've never seen anything like this happen. I mean, there's been leaks, of word of what might happen on a particular case or something like that. But we've never seen anything like this where an actual document is leaked. And I don't know if they'll ever figure out who it was. It's been interesting, too, to see how different people are reacting to it. I was watching a clip today of there's a show on YouTube called The Majority Report hosted by Sam Cedar, and who's a liberal host, and his liberal co-host Emma Vigeland. And they kind of had, so Cedar, who is, I think in his early 50s, older guy, probably more of an institutionalist in this way, he was talking about how, he thinks it's entirely inappropriate that anything should ever leak from the court. And Emma, who's much younger, is probably about half of Sam's age, was talking about how she thinks it's a great thing, and that of course this leak should have happened so we know what's going on. And I tend to agree. And I'm all for protecting whistleblowers and things like that. So I tend to take that position. I'm glad the leaks. I'm glad this leak happened, and I'm generally glad when leaks happen. I'm kind of a transparency nut. So, but I don't know. I have a feeling that whoever did it probably covered their tracks pretty well, and it would not surprise me if we never find out who actually leaked that document. But I hope that we do. Not because I want to see anyone get in trouble, but I'm just very curious.
Well, I did read that by a few hours that the Roe v. Wade actual was leaked before it became official, that it was becoming official, but that was by a few hours, like the same day. I don't know if you saw that.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I missed the last 5 or 6 words. What can you say that again? I'm sorry.
I said that the original Roe v. Wade was leaked in the afternoon before it was made official. Oh,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. It was a done deal, but it was not officially announced by the Supreme Court yet. And I think it was by a few hours. It was like the same day, but it hit the stand. Somebody leaked it. Now, a very different kind of leak, because obviously this was, basically putting out that Roe v. Wade was now settled, and even the justices who voted for it and stuff like that before it was done by the Supreme Court. And there was one other kind of leak that happened with Thurgood Marshall, something around Thurgood Marshall, but I can't remember the details right now. But again, it was something minor. It was like a same day thing, or it was something that wasn't supposed to ever hit the public eye. That came out of the Supreme Court. But I don't remember the details, and I didn't have a chance to check it up. But yeah, the Roe v. Wade had the same thing. Now it's kind of like almost a cycle that it has come back to be leaked, considering that's what happened when it actually passed. So I'm sure you probably saw that our governor Sununu said that it's settled law in New Hampshire no matter what happens with the Constitution. What do you think? Is he trying to do a good soundbite, or do you think he's going to be able to keep the minority, rabid, toxic base in line for not to try to overthrow it as a state issue?
It'll be very interesting to see how these Republican governors deal with this. Chris Sununu, and for those who don't know, our governor, Chris Sununu, who's a Republican, the only Republican I voted for in 2020, and the way things are going might be the last Republican I vote for in my lifetime, but Chris Sununu is pro-choice, at least on paper, as is, Charlie Baker, Republican governor of Massachusetts, Larry Hogan, Republican governor of Maryland. These northeastern Republicans are more likely to be pro-choice versus, say, southern Republican governors. But it'll be really interesting to see how these Republican governors deal with this because, for example, in the state of Florida, you have Ron DeSantis, who I feel is a psychopath, who wants to look as far right as possible on everything and really appeal to that base of the party as he probably embarks on his presidential run. And he's in a state where polling data shows Floridians do regard Roe v. Wade as settled law. And I was actually surprised when I saw the numbers. Floridians, this is not going to play well with Floridians restricting abortion in Florida. It just isn't. And but he's going to have that impulse to try to restrict abortion. So how do these Republican governors deal with this, with what is nationally, more Americans are pro-choice, or maybe they're personally pro-life, but regard this as settled law. I mean, it's 50 years of settled law. And how are these Republican governors and Republican legislatures, how are they going to navigate this? And in a situation like New Hampshire, where you have a pro-choice, moderate Republican governor, but a state legislature that in many ways is a clown college, as John Hopwood likes to call it, and there's many Republicans in our state legislature here who I'm sure are just frothing at the mouth right now at the notion of eliminating abortion altogether in New Hampshire. So I don't think it's likely to happen, but it could. But it'll be very interesting to see how these governors navigate this.
Do you think this will push any of the up-for-grab elections more towards the Democrat? Because this is going to stay a hot topic for right through to the election, no matter what happens. Unless they come out and take the case that's in question and decide to not overthrow it, which, that's the question. Do you think it could affect the midterms?
Not really. I think the Democrats are doomed in the midterms. People constantly say, oh, the economy is terrible, and of course they blame the Democrats because that's what happens, when you have whoever's president gets blamed, and we have a Democrat in the White House, so people blame the Democrats. The economy is actually very strong, but inflation, unfortunately, is very bad, which is hurting a lot of people, so of course they blame the chief executive and the chief executive's party, so which I think is absurd. The President of the United States has no control over inflation or the economy to a large extent, but it's easier to just blame the chief executive. So no, I think the Democrats, and the Democrats, I am an independent. Ideologically speaking, I lean far more left than right, but I would be just as embarrassed, well, not just as embarrassed, but I would be almost as embarrassed to call myself a Democrat as I would a Republican. The Democrats have shown themselves to be weak and ineffective, and stunning how, they can't get anything done on voting rights. They knew, they can't get most of the Build Back Better bill passed. They can't. And there's no excuse for them not being prepared for this. With Trump as president got to put 3 justices on the Supreme Court. So you have a very conservative-leaning court. So the Democrats should have seen this coming, and they should have done something about it. But they don't have the balls. They don't, they're going to have to at least do a carve out for the filibuster to get something passed to federally protect abortion rights in this country, so that it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court necessarily does, because you'll have a federal law that says abortion rights are protected. But these people the Democrats can't get it done. Republicans are ruthless, and Democrats spend a lot of time wringing their hands going, we don't want to upset the Republicans. My God, look at the way they reacted when we found out that Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, is a QAnon freak who is trying to help overthrow the election while Clarence Thomas was ruling on a case directly related to the insurrection. And instead of Democrats calling for some sort of change to how the Supreme Court works, or even for his resignation, the best they can do is, well, maybe we can get Justice Roberts to talk to. I mean, they're so weak. So don't depend on these people to fix this. They're going to get crushed in the midterms. And as much as I hate to see it, because the Republican Party is so repulsive, the Democrats kind of deserve to get crushed, because they're weak, they're ineffective, they're disorganized, they're terrible at messaging, and they kind of deserve to lose, unfortunately.
So, Matt, is there anything you have any strong opinions on? I mean, that was kind of mamby-pamby.
I know. I don't mean to be so milquetoast. I'm just a mellow guy,
So, I mean, I'm reading out there that it's falling that there could be that there are some Democrats out there that are smart enough individually to use this to their advantage.
Well, they should.
And we will be right back as we talk about what's going on in the world. And there's so much left to talk about. Here.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. You can be part of this conversation by dialing in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So if you have any questions or comments for either Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed, which you can watch 4 to 6, between 4 to 6 Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday on mattconarton.com, on IPMNation.com, and if you are local to the Manchester area, it's 95.3 WMNH. Think I got them all right, Matt?
I think so.
You can call in right now at 202-570-7057 and explain to Matt how the Democrats are going to grow a pair and take back and are going to ravage the midterms.
Oh, yeah.
Yay. You don't sound convinced, Matt.
I am unconvinced.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing a mixed bag of stuff. I mean, there is opportunities to leverage this along with some other things. And of course, obviously, January 6th got kicked off by Ukraine. And then Ukraine has now got kicked off by this. But there's still stuff moving. So have you been following the breadcrumbs of January 6th? And what are you seeing of what, if anything, will they get done if, because you know the committee's going away if the Republicans do take back the House?
Yeah, I've been pretty distracted away from January 6th, to be honest with you. I know Don Jr. just got done testifying. Apparently it was fairly uneventful. Supposedly he didn't invoke the Fifth Amendment at all, but I'm sure there was a lot of amnesia. I don't recall. So I haven't been paying that much attention to it. But, the Kevin McCarthy audio that's come out is pretty interesting to me. I have a little bit of a different take on some of that. There's that Kevin McCarthy clip of him saying in a phone call, in a conference call, that at one point that Trump had actually acknowledged that he might have played a role in causing January 6th to happen, and that he understood that he bore perhaps a modicum of responsibility for that. And I noticed that in the media, well, of course, in more liberal media, you've got them saying, oh, see, look, Trump knew. He knew it was his fault. He acknowledged it. According to Kevin McCarthy, he acknowledged it. And then, of course, in conservative media, they just completely ignore all of this. There's no talk about it on Fox News. But the thing that I haven't heard anyone say is I don't understand why people are so quick to believe Kevin McCarthy when he said, when he told Liz Cheney and others in that in that audio that leaked, when he said that the President Trump had acknowledged that he might bear some responsibility in that. Because I have my own theory about that. I don't think that conversation ever happened. I don't think, or maybe it happened, but I don't think Trump said that. I don't think Trump, this is just a theory. I have no evidence to back it up. Call it intuition. But I don't think Trump ever said to Kevin McCarthy, or I don't think there was any acknowledgement that he might have had something to do with it. I think McCarthy was just telling the other Republicans on that call that as a way of sort of placating them, as a way of saying, no, look, our leader, he acknowledges that he might have messed up. I think that's what was really going on there. I don't believe that Trump ever actually said to Kevin McCarthy that he understands that this might be partly his fault. And I don't know why everyone's so, what's trustworthy about Kevin McCarthy? I think Kevin McCarthy was lying when he said that. I don't think Trump ever said that. But that's just a theory.
You mean you think that the narcissist couldn't have a moment of clarity enough to realize what he did, that he might have done what he's done ever since he's hit the public stage, which is to completely fabricate and lie as much as he needs to support a reality which everybody else knows isn't a reality. But, you know, as you've said many times, the emperor has no clothes. No one wants to call it out, at least in the Republican Party that wants to survive. So I don't know why you would think that, Matt.
Well, I actually, so I don't necessarily think that Trump believes his own nonsense and his own delusions. I think it's quite possible that he's a perfectly rational actor who completely understands that he's lying, that knows he's lying, that knows it's all BS, and he's just, but he just continues to forge that narrative because you know, millions of Republicans believe it and will believe anything he says. So I think it's entirely possible that he does know and he does realize that, yes, he does bear the responsibility for January 6th. I just don't believe that he ever said it out loud to Kevin McCarthy. I'm very skeptical about that specifically, and I'm puzzled as to why I seem to be the only one. I don't hear anyone else. I've yet to see anyone else in all of media say, hey, is it possible that McCarthy was lying to Liz Cheney and the others when he said that the president said that? Everyone's just kind of taking McCarthy's word that that conversation with Trump went the way that he claimed it went. I don't think it did.
So you think that liar A might be lying about liar B?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a far stretch. I can't say I thought of that because I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to whatever Kevin McCarthy says, because it's going to be ignored by the Trumpers, spun by the Republican Party. And the Democrats have a buffet of issues they could be going after, and they're all on a diet. So, you know, what's one more? You know,
yeah.
like bringing somebody to an all-you-can-eat buffet of issues and having them go, no, I'm on a diet. I'll just watch as all of it rots on the tree.
Yeah.
So, okay. But there's still a big mess with the Roe v. Wade thing.
Yes.
And I wonder if this is going to give the impetus when the Democrats either stay in power or get back in power, which will happen. It's a cyclical thing, that it will push them to make the changes that they can make in the Supreme Court. And when this all came up, what I thought is this might be the poison pill that drags the Supreme Court clearly into the muckraking of the other two branches of the government, to the point that they may not be as unassailable or untouchable or not vulnerable as they arrogantly would like to think they are. I mean, of course, you know, FDR tried to pack the court, and the court has grown and has shrunk, and nothing's happened for a while. But things like Ginny Thompson and going against what 70, last time I saw something, 77% of Americans accepted, whether they agreed with it or not, with settled law and shouldn't be messed with, is going to give a lot of fire to those people that have been pushing to try to reform the court or put something different in place than we have now. And that's what I thought. I thought, will this be a big enough crack for them to go against the will of the people in their arrogance to open themselves up to, you know, they do this, they're going to be rolling in the pigsty with the other two with the other two branches?
Well, I would say they already do. So I have a little bit of a different view than a lot of people do. I think Americans are somewhat institutionalist by nature, and we've been taught that the Supreme Court is supposed to be above politics. That's why there are lifetime appointments. But I've never really bought in. I'm very cynical about that. I've never really bought into that. I mean, if the Supreme Court is supposed to be above politics, well, they go through a very political process to get appointed and confirmed to the court. And we have liberal justices and we have conservative justices who, clearly have their ideological proclivities. And I've just kind of never really bought into the idea that the Supreme Court is supposed to be above politics, unlike the other two branches. I think the start of my cynicism. It's funny. Clarence Thomas, I think, was there when my cynicism really started about it, which was back in 2000 during the 2000 election, when the Supreme Court selected, and I use that language very intentionally, selected George W. Bush to be the next president, and said, no, you don't have to count those votes in Florida. Don't worry about it. We'll just call it for Bush. It's fine. And they even sent Clarence Thomas, and this is why I mentioned him again, they even sent Clarence Thomas out to talk to the media to explain that this was not a political decision, what was clearly a political decision. So I think that was sort of the beginnings of my feeling that, this whole notion, it's a very nice idea that the Supreme Court is somehow above it all and is above politics, but I think it's a load of BS, and it's never really been the case. And I think all that's happening now is a lot more people are being forced to wake up to that reality.
So I don't completely disagree. I feel that there are some people that can hold up those ideals, and I think that there are some that can't. And, I was a big fan of my boy Pete's idea, and I know he's not the only one that professed this, but 15 on the Supreme Court, 5 chosen by Republicans, 5 chosen by Democrats, and 5 have to be chosen and agreed upon not by the majority, but by both parties. Like, they have to actually have a joint agreement on the appointing of the other 5, equal no matter who is in the majority.
Yeah.
That's maybe as close as we can get to making the court in of itself less in tune with the politics. But the Federalists, this whole thing, I mean, they've been at this since the 80s to put all of this in process, to do this overthrow, which is at the core the very opposite of what the Republican Party for the last 100 years said it stood for. But, this was a very well orchestrated 40-year plan coming to fruition. So I get your frustration on how could the Democrats not have seen this coming? And the amount of laws and things that need to be put in place. I mean, let's just talk miracles for a minute. They stay in power at the midterms. Don't cough, don't choke, make no funny sounds. But if they do, does that give them 2 years to get like the Voting Rights Act passed and all of these things? Would it still be savable?
I have no faith. I have no faith in these people. I have none. I have none. You know what? And Biden, I voted for Biden. I support Biden. There's still a lot that I like about President Biden, and some things I don't. But Biden set the tone for this weakness. I mean, the Democrats have always been weak in a lot of ways, but way back after the election had been won, and what's her name, Emily, I forget her last name now, whoever was running the GSA, who was a Trumper, who was refusing to certify the election for Biden, just flat out refusing. And that dragged on while we're in the middle of a pandemic. And Biden was just like not wanting to upset the Republicans. He just decided to be very patient and didn't get upset. And just, when asked by the media, well, are these Republicans, are they going to sign off on this? Are they going to transfer power? And Biden was just like, they will. It's just taking them a little time. They don't want to upset Trump. And, that wasn't right. The second that they were that the GSA was refusing to certify the election, which was clearly over, there should have been people filing lawsuits to force them to do it. But this whole thing, Biden's like, oh, they just need to get Trump out of their system, give them time. That set the tone. And that's what we're stuck with. This, don't want to upset the apple cart, don't want to upset Mitch McConnell too much, because he'll do something we don't like when they're in power. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. I have no faith in these people to do anything.
So, has this become we'll be right back.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
So I want to say one more thing about the Supreme Court, and then I want to move to a couple of other things that I don't want to take up the whole show, because I don't think people can take that much hope and sunshine from you, Matt.
I think that's what I bring is hope and sunshine and rainbows.
Yes. Next time, would you wash them off after you take them out of the unicorn spot?
Absolutely.
Is that Susan Collins is being on the hot seat. I don't know for how long. And so is Lisa up in Alaska. Now, unfortunately, Susan has got 6 more years, so we're stuck with her. I mean, she just got in, so she's got 5 more years. But what do you think? Were they literally that? I mean, I read an interesting article that said that Susan Collins may get called the worst thing you can get called in Washington, which is not a liar, but naive. Were those two really being naive, or were they saying what they needed to say because they didn't want to get on the wrong side of the Republican base?
Oh, I think definitely the latter. So, just to clarify for people who don't know, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, both Republican senators who are pro-choice. Yeah, kind of funny if you think about it. They're both on the extreme opposite ends of the country. Maine all the way on the East Coast, and Alaska as far west as you can get in the United States. Off continent even. I believe that, let me put it this way. I think they heard what they wanted to hear in order to, when these, whether it's Gorsuch or Amy Coney Barrett or Kavanaugh, when they're asked these questions and they sort of vaguely talk about settled law and precedent and whatnot, but they don't, but they're very careful never to say. I mean, I don't think any of them ever explicitly said that they would definitely not vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't think any of them said that. But they play the game of hinting that they might do it, they might not do it, in a way that gives people enough room to kind of hear what they want to hear and kind of spin it how they want to spin it. So I think they all left enough room for Murkowski and Collins to say, okay, well, it doesn't sound like they're interested in overturning Roe v. Wade, so I guess we can vote for them. Because nobody wants to be, if you're a Republican and Trump is president, you don't want to be on the wrong side of him and voting against his Supreme Court pick. So.
Well, I mean, Lisa has gotten on the wrong side of Trump a couple of times, and he tried to replace her.
True.
And so that makes me wonder a little bit. I mean, Collins says if they vote to overturn Roe v. Wade, that they lied to her. I saw an interview where she literally said, then they lied to me. Because in my office, he assured me that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
So she's fighting back that the Supreme Court justices lied, which opens up an interesting thing is because now you have people poking, if they actually were under oath or testimony and they lied about to get some votes, does that mean that they can be taken out, that they can, not get fired?
That would be a very heavy lift. Now, I mean, you'd probably have to prove, perjury. You'd probably have to prove that they committed perjury, and perjury is difficult to prove to begin with. And I don't see a path to do that. I don't see it.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know. I don't recall. Well, here, let me play you the recording.
Yeah. Well, I hope that, it'd be great if they make it so she can't run again. I'm sick of these QAnon freaks,
Yep. And the question is, of course, all of the memes in social media now are still happy that you just couldn't vote for Hillary. For all the people that said, well, I just didn't vote, or I just couldn't vote for Hillary. Because obviously if Trump had lost that election, a lot of this would not be where it is now.
True. Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah. And she called a lot of the things that was going to happen. She wasn't far off mark.
Right.
So, Matthew Cawthon. Well, the latest video has him naked, thrusting his groin into some guy's face that just some other mysterious, different from the ones that leaked the other videos. He's got like 4 different people that are leaking videos and things of him. That sure does make it look like he's, He's one of those perverts that he talks about.
He's letting his freak flag fly. I say good for him. Young guy, live it up.
He's not letting his freak flag fly. He's denying it all.
Yeah, of course.
That was not you naked.
Yeah.
Ukraine article came out that because of some of the information that the United States provided, that Ukraine was able to take out several Russian generals. Obviously, Germany has stepped up. Europe is now cutting off, slowing down, and are even talking embargo for some of the Russian products. It looks like it's pushing Putin to have to really dig into China as one of his few even potential allies. What's going on all there? I know that, the Supreme Court has been the conversation of the week, but I haven't talked to you for a month. So tell me what you see going on the Ukraine front. Any shifts, anything? There are Russian areas getting now blown up, which of course is unfair. How dare they strike back? I think it is just appalling. But
yeah, I think it's entirely possible that this war drags on and on and on for years. We may not see an end to it anytime soon. But it'll also be interesting to see what happens on May 9th, which is obviously a very important day for the Russians. And, one rumor is that Putin will officially declare war so that he can initiate a draft in Russia. There's also the possibility that he uses that day to finally say, okay, we've done what we wanted to accomplish. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where all this goes. I continue to be very impressed and heartened by the way the Ukrainians are fighting and not giving up and not giving in. It's really incredible and impressive, and God bless them. I hope they can continue to hold out and continue to repel the Russians. And obviously there's the ongoing concern about our involvement, NATO's involvement. We don't want anything to escalate into a situation that's potentially very dangerous for the world, which I actually don't think is going to happen. But there's always a danger, but, so I don't know. I don't know where it all goes, but, hopefully, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so what do you think about this whole thing about Putin and stomach cancer and needing to get surgery?
I hope he dies on the table, if that's the case. Actually, what I'd really like is for one of these generals to lose patience with him and just put a bullet in the back of his head, although that would be too quick. I'd like to see him eaten by a shark, I think, but there's probably zero chance of that. I think Russia is landlocked. Well, not landlocked, but no, I don't know. I hope whatever happens to him is. I hope he's very ill. I hope he dies soon. And but we don't know. Nobody really knows exactly if he's sick or how sick he might be. It's all a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, I was surprised. I can't remember what the source was, but I saw it in a couple of different sources, and maybe it was just a couple of different sources reporting on one lake. I was like, how did Putin ever let the information, his ego and him as the ultimate healthy, invincible man, him and his twin Trump, how could he ever, somebody's head had to roll if that piece of information is accurate and it got out. I cannot imagine the Putin ego wanting to be seen as somebody that would have to go under surgery or had cancer. Like this just does not ring like anything that Putin would have ever willingly volunteered to go out of the country. I mean, did it strike you that way, or were you like,
I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's so much of it is just, it's rumor and speculation. The other persistent rumor about his health seems to be that he might have Parkinson's. Maybe he has both cancer and Parkinson's. I know there's that one video of him. He's sort of, he's clutching the table as though he's trying to hold himself steady. And I saw that, and I wondered if he's trying to not shake. You know, he's on camera, and he knows he's on camera. Is he trying to not shake? But I don't know. I mean, you know, hopefully we know something soon, and hopefully, you know, I want the worst for him. He's purely evil, and you know, I hope he dies, and I hope someone takes his place who is maybe a little more pragmatic and decides to end this war. But I don't know. I mean, you know, it's all rumor and conjecture at this point.
Yes. So what did you think of the issue that popped up between the Chancellor of Germany and the President of the Ukraine basically being like, telling him to go kiss off when he said that about, you know, that Ukraine needed to compromise with Russia to end the war. Did you read that whole thing?
I caught something about it, but it didn't strike me as particularly significant. I mean, you know, it's I'm more concerned about Israel and their neutrality, their stubborn neutrality in this. I'd like to see Israel be a little more critical of Russia and take a stronger stand, you know, but that doesn't seem to be forthcoming. But, yeah, I mean, or China, yeah. Well, China, though, the good news on China is they do seem to be holding steady in terms of not giving in to Putin's requests for help, which is good. I mean, as far as I'm aware, we haven't seen any evidence that they're, you know, I mean, pretty humiliating for Putin to have to go to the Chinese hat in hand and try to get some help with this war. So hopefully China stands their ground on that and doesn't help. I mean, I'd like to see them. I mean, if this thing continues to drag on, I think China eventually is going to have to make a choice and take a little bit of a stand, albeit tepidly. But so far, as long, you know, at least they're not helping the Russians, as far as we know. You know, China, I mean, they don't like this kind of thing. The Chinese prefer stability. So they're not happy, I'm sure, with any of this, and would prefer to see things normalized. But you know, there is a lot of the world. It's funny. I was talking about this the other day on my show. It's very easy to sort of fall into this thinking that, you know, it's like this whole thing is like the whole world against Russia. Well, much of the world is united against Russia, but we shouldn't forget there are still many places in the world where they have chosen to remain neutral. And, you know, you've got India and Indonesia and much of the continent. And, you know, a lot of the world is still not taking sides in this, either out of a desire to stay neutral politically or just the economics of it. So, you know, I'd like to see more. I mean, you know, NATO is really holding it together well, but I'd like to see more, you know, and even non-NATO states to some degree, but I don't know. I'd like to see China step up and say, okay, Russia, enough. You're really messing things up for all of us here. Hello? Did I lose the call? Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Sorry. I don't know what I hit. I must have hit something.
Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's a very interesting thing about who's staying neutral and who doesn't want to get on Russia's bad side because they may be dependent on their oil, or they have a Russian-like regime and they, want to see, they're looking to create a new world order. And Russia is their best bet of creating that new world order. I mean, does that make sense?
Oh, it does. Yeah. No, I mean, they had that they had that announcement before the invasion about no limits to their relationship. So, no, absolutely.
Matt, I'm sure there'll be another interesting month between now and when we talk at the beginning of June. You have a good May.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. You too, Dr. Kevin.
Next week we have Lori Powers Otto and Catherine Semmelson. Come join us here on the Dr. Kevin Show on OMTimes.